a town on Waka Waka country called Eidsfeld. So through my father's side, so Dad was born and bred in Brisbane as well. But so I have connections to Waka Waka as well. And so I met, part of my role here is we started doing a podcast, and we're looking at what schools and what faculties are doing to embed Indigenous perspectives at Griffith University. And so a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to Amanda, who's a linguist in the School of Linguistics. And yeah, she's doing this amazing work up at Bundaberg. I don't know if anyone knows where Bundaberg is or if anyone likes drinking rum, but that's kind of the rum capital of Australia. So that's also Waka Waka country. So they're doing some language work up on country. So I said to Amanda, I'd love to be involved because, I don't know, and because of some historical and colonial, impacts, I haven't had the chance to learn that part of my language. So and that's, I think, happening throughout Australia, definitely happening in Victoria. A lot of the language revitalisation is happening in schools, which is fantastic to see. So really happy to be here and to look forward to, addressing your questions. And I will try and, share some knowledge. And over to you, Ricki.
Lovely. And just to let everyone know, we are recording this. We're just recording it because one, we just love all our guests and we value the knowledge of First Nations knowledge and ways of being, but also for those who couldn't attend. And I know that those who want to reach out perhaps and think, oh, you know what, I really would love to listen to this again, get some ideas. How do I embed this in the classroom? And, it's all about, revisiting this really important, rich information. So I think you started to answer the first question, but the first aspect we're going to talk today briefly for the next couple of minutes is your background and experience. So can you share your journey and experience that have shaped your perspective on Indigenous health and well-being in educational settings?
Hey, and this is just to kind of say what you said, that I've been in Indigenous education for 20 years. It's over 20 years, Ricki. It's probably more like, feels like 30 years. So I went to university, probably going back to before that. So at school, I was probably like a lot of Aboriginal kids, was bullied. There was not many of us at school. So, and definitely, around the 1970s and 1980s, because of representations of us from the media and in society, there was a kind of this big shame factor with being identified as Aboriginal. So you would just kind of want to blend in and kind of not raise your head and really not be proud of your culture. So, and so I was not alone in those experiences, and I've written about that in a book that's about to come out, Ricki, on strength-based approaches to Indigenous education. Shout out. So to Routledge.
Okay, everyone, can you give us that title again, Ren?
Strengths-based approaches to Indigenous education, and so it's kind of talking back to that kind of deficit lens that Aboriginal people were viewed through. And again, as I said, from these colonial Eurocentric views that have come through Australia's history, and that are still perpetuated by the media even to this day. So really combating that, and that's why it's great to see the work that people like Reconciliation Victoria and up here and Reconciliation Queensland and Reconciliation Australia, the work that they do to actually bring community together, that we can actually work together to address those gaps that we're all trying to face. So that was my experience at school, but through my grandparents' lack of access to education, and then my dad's lack of access to education, they really wanted the three of us, me and my two sisters, to go to university. So, but first off, we had to finish year 12, which at that stage there weren't a lot of black fellas who were completing year 12. So all three of us did that, and then all three of us went to university. So so we were the first in our family to actually, well, to finish year 12 and then to go on to university, to do undergraduate degrees. And then, I kind of just fell into working. I was working with, in community, working with Aboriginal communities in New South Wales, working on literacy and numeracy programs, IT programs, really anything. So I still was finishing my degree. And then when I did finish my degree, I got a job at TAFE, just teaching Indigenous studies at TAFE, at a place called Narrabri. I don't know if anyone knows where that is in Coonabarabran. So it was really strong community out there. That's Kamilaroi country. And I got to really know the local community and work really closely with them. And they really accepted me as an outsider, a Murray coming into that community. So I actually learnt a lot in that time. And then actually moved on, was doing some work at Kempsey, managing, we had an Aboriginal centre, and Kempsey is probably the second largest Aboriginal community in New South Wales. And so a lot of, a lot of issues where reconciliation wasn't.
What did you get for afternoon tea?
Oh, sorry, everyone. Could you please mute? I love your afternoon tea, darling, but we want to hear Dr. Ren first.
Yeah, I'd like the afternoon tea too. So that really just the experiences that community had, and I suppose the role that reconciliation had in that town, especially around that 2000, 2001, working in that community. And I don't know if people remember the 1967 referendum, and what that was about and what the yes vote was. I think we were up around 90%, which is quite significant compared to what happened last year with the voice to parliament. But in Kempsey, the majority of that community voted no, and they actually had the highest no vote in the country. So that was kind of the racism that we were dealing with in that community. So there was a lot of goodwill as well, and we worked really closely with schools. And then, I did in and out of jobs and, a lot of teaching. But then I had the opportunity to do my master's at ACU. So that kind of got me back home to Brisbane. And I was there for 5 years. And then I worked in Queensland Catholic education, and looking after Indigenous education up here in Queensland. So quite diverse, going up to the Torres Strait, and those communities up there, and their learning needs, especially young people, and then some of the remote communities up here in Queensland. So I got to visit some great communities like Palm Island, up in Cairns, and in Townsville, as well as out in Toowoomba, and then the great work that was happening in Brisbane. So and then I had a stint. I was a deputy principal and a teaching deputy principal out at Alice Springs. So that was really interesting for me. First time, away, really in the desert, and away from family and away from country, a long way from the coast. So being a saltwater Murray, that was really difficult. But the community was fantastic. The students were fantastic. But that was kind of my first time I'd experienced that the majority of our students, who were all Aboriginal, the majority of our students spoke English as about a second or third language, and how that was incorporated into the curriculum in the school that I was teaching at. So I probably learned more than what I taught out there. And again, I got homesick. So then I came back to Brisbane, and I applied to do a PhD at the University of Queensland, as Ricki attested to. And given that at that stage we were in a teacher shortage in Australia, and we had a lot of teachers leaving the profession, and we still, as Aboriginal people, were underrepresented as teachers across Australia, I kind of wanted to take that strength-based approach, or that strength-based lens, and look at, well, those Indigenous teachers who are in schools and who are staying, what are their stories? And what can we learn from them as to why they're staying in schools? So that's they kind of inform my thesis. And so I was doing that for quite a while, and doing a PhD through COVID was not fun, but yarning with those Indigenous teachers was probably one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. And then I finished my PhD, and there was a job going here at Griffith, a level B lecturer. And so I applied, and I was lucky enough to get it. And I've been here lecturing in, teacher education courses, both at undergraduate and at master's level. And from all those things that Ricki mentioned, so in Indigenous education, but also in sociology and a little bit in education policy. So they're kind of my teaching areas, and I'm still undertaking research when my teaching load allows me. So that's kind of my journey, Ricki.
Lovely.
I've gone from little black kid in Brisbane growing up, really unsure about his identity, to someone who's completed their PhD and is now working with undergraduates and our new teachers, and hoping to share some knowledge with them, but also learning from them.
Perfect. So what we're going to do now, everyone, is we're going to ask, I've got some pre-arranged questions that I really want to cover to really help give you, as workers in the field, family members and communities of interest, to show how we can use some of the skills and knowledges that Dr. Ren Perkins has developed over the past 25, 30 years in this area. My first question, and because of time, I'm going to put you to a test, Ren. Do it like a 2-minute thesis. So I want to see if we can cover questions in 2 minutes to give everyone a go. So, all right, well, I'll stick my finger, I'll wave my hand. I was going to say finger, but I think it's in the, I'll wave my hand when you've got the 30 seconds left. So the first question is on the topic of Indigenous perspectives. How do Indigenous worldviews inform concepts of health and well-being, particularly in the context of schooling?
Great question. And I think Indigenous ways of knowing, being and doing, our health and well-being, and our connection to country, our connection to culture, our connection to language are all interconnected. So it's that interconnectivity that we can actually bring in whatever subject that we're doing. When we bring in our Indigenous knowledge and our Indigenous ways of knowing, we're actually, that well-being of our community, and that includes all of us here, our community, the people that we work with, our colleagues, our kin, they're all interconnected. And then those those key terms like relationality, reciprocity. So those kind of things are really important in terms of well-being, and especially where you might be in a school where there is only 1 or 2 Aboriginal teachers, if any. You might have some Aboriginal teacher aides, and so it's about ensuring that we can actually support them and not burn them out, because of the knowledge that they do bring, the connections that they do have, and how by being there, they can actually, I think it's good for our Indigenous students, like for their well-being, to see themselves represented in the professional staff.
Thank you for that. Next question is on cultural relevance. What are some culturally relevant practices or activities that schools can implement to support Indigenous students' health and well-being?
Yeah, again, a good question. And I think some of the things I said before in the first question, Ricki, is about the relationality, getting to know who our students are, where they're from, their connections to country. For a lot of our young people, they may be on a journey like I was. As I said, just that discovery of being proud of your identity. Also doing a bit of research in terms of knowing about the local community, where we can actually get support, building those relationships up, and they take time as well. So, and that's okay. Like, we don't have to rush building these relationships. They can take time, and they should take time.
Wonderful. Next question. The challenges. What challenges do Indigenous students face within the current educational system regarding to their health and well-being? And part two, so I have to give you an extra 30 seconds. How can these be addressed?
Okay. Well, from my opinion is for a young Indigenous student coming in, it's about, and there's some sociological aspects, but not seeing themselves represented in the curriculum, but also in the hidden curriculum. That is, what are some of the norms of the school that may be these Eurocentric, Anglo-Saxon norms and values? And so, and again, it may, I think it's an issue no matter where the school is, whether it's in a regional or remote area or in an urban setting. So I think, so that's the challenge, is how can we actually make schools relevant and where an Indigenous student can come in and feel like they belong. And some solutions are, again, it kind of links to the first two questions. It's about really engaging with local community, with parents and carers about, and that's a challenge in itself, because some of those parents and carers may have had really negative experiences at school. Again, they take time building those relationships, establishing that trust that may not be there at the beginning. And that's about, communication skills and putting yourself in a vulnerable position. But there are resources out there to support you in doing that.
Wonderful. Next question focuses on the benefits of Indigenous approaches. In what ways can an Indigenous lens improve the overall health outcomes for all students, not just Indigenous students?
Yeah, there is some research to show the benefits for all our health and well-being when we can actually connect to country. So if we can actually, schools can do that holistically, but if we can do that systematically, so we're not relying on one excellent, great principle to think outside the box, but if the department can say, well, we should be learning on and from country as an organisation, as a school, the benefit for connecting us, whether we're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, the ability to connect with country, the benefit is there. And the research actually shows that it improves learning, retention, educational outcomes, engagement, and there is an improvement in attendance. So where there's that, you are actively engaging country as part of your pedagogy, as part of your overall approach, holistic approach as a school. And I've physically seen some schools up here in Brisbane where they actually do use that approach, that connection to country. So it's not just an individual teacher who's embedding country as part of their pedagogy, it's a whole school approach. So that's a challenge.
I was trying to say, Ren, for you, and one thing that I'm in love with, and people might be surprised, is the sports. And I do believe that sports is a way to unite kids, from different nationalities and ethnicities and diversities. How important, just quickly, is sports for our mob? Because I know with a lot of kids, especially up in Queensland, you're mentioning love of rugby and that. Is sports something that we need to focus on sometimes too, to bridge those gaps of understanding from your perspective?
Yeah, and I've got the deadly choices.
Yeah, I saw that.
I know the work that sporting organisations do, like Australia, Tennis Australia, like the NRL, like the AFL. They have academies and they go and work with schools. And when I was in Alice Springs, like, I shouldn't say this in a Victorian, but I hated the Melbourne Demons. But when I was in Alice Springs with pretty much 100% Aboriginal students, the Melbourne Demons came out to our school and visited our students and did so. And for our students, AFL, our students in Alice Springs, AFL was like a religion, or was their religion. And that's how I got involved with the students is I actually went out on weekends and watched them play in their local club comp, and I ended up coaching the school team, even though I was a Queenslander and knew nothing about AFL. But it's just by having those connections. And so sport, I think in its purest form, it can actually connect us all. It's really, it is this equal, money and power and all these things can corrupt anything, including sport. But at its purest level, where we want everyone to participate and it's an inclusive activity, and it can really bring people together. And it is a good way for a lot of our young kids to stay active, to keep well, to be healthy. We want them to be moving, to be engaged, especially playing team sport. So there's that aspect. And then again, I saw in Alice Springs where, it was Indigenous and non-Indigenous kids playing together. And so you could see reconciliation in action out on the sporting field. And it was wonderful. So I think sport can really help. But some of our mob, a couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to do a podcast about Indigenous people in STEM. And so some of our mob, may not have that sporting, gene or that love of sport like, you and I do. So they might want to go down that path of, following a scientific or a science. And, I got to yarn with some amazing Indigenous people in STEM. But I do think sport for our mob has a big role to play, and it's supporting our mob, engaging in education, looking after our health and about our well-being.
Wonderful. And I just want to add one put my old sociologist connector hat on. And one thing about sport, what I love, and one of my dear friends is actually on the seminar today online, Cade Williams, who does a lot of work in pride sports in Victoria and champions things like racing and other ways. I see building bridges between all sorts of kids, rainbow kids, kids with disabilities, kids who might not be comfortable with sport but want to participate. How do we change that lens? And I would say, as a teacher, using sports as a vehicle, getting kids who are graphic designers to say, hey, let's design a field. Let's design with Indigenous elders how we can organise a field of play. Creating areas where people can sit together and talk about the sport and a bit of a history, other areas within the space to really bring kids together and perhaps their families together to really embrace that. Because it's one thing when we get kids of all diversities and intersectionalities together to really learn how to work together, and building strength-based approaches to recreational learnings, to me, really does help filter, and then you can use that as evidence in your teachings to say how you're embedding the core frameworks for Indigenous ways of knowing. On the next point, and I guess I sort of mentioned about collaboration, but I'd love to have your perspective. How can educators, families, communities collaborate to create a more supportive environment for students through an Indigenous perspective?
Yeah, kind of keep saying a bit repetitive, but linking back to the previous responses, but it's about engaging parents and carers and community and actually having them come in a reciprocal, respectful way, but having them involved in decisions at the school, activities in the school, but probably on the same kind of coin, you want to be engaged in community activities where there's activities happening out in the local community about getting out there. And Ricki, you put a shout out to becoming volunteers in Reconciliation Victoria. So those kind of things where there's an opportunity to kind of go outside those gates, the school gates, and engage with community. Because if mobs see you out there, they're probably more likely to want to get involved with you, and they'll get to know you. And then I suppose having that opportunity to come into the school, work with the school, build those relationships, build up that trust. As I said, they take time. because some of the trauma that some of these parents and carers and their families have faced is generational and historical. So it does take time to repair some of that damage that has been done by the past. But the benefits, not just for our Indigenous students, but for all our students, and not just educational, but as you said, Ricki, for their well-being and health, is immeasurable. It's so worth it. And when we did that in Alice Springs, you could see the students' faces light up when they could see their families come into the school and, you know, come into the classroom and be part of the school, and the parents actually felt safe. You know, it felt like a safe space for them to be, because they may not have felt like that when they came to school. So, but
Isn't
again,
that wonderful? Isn't that
it
wonderful, Ren?
takes
And then I
time.
was absolutely, and I'm just thinking to all the teachers listening, you know, consider approaching your school management, or I can't remember the terms we use these days in schools. You know, having a wall, even if you do have an Indigenous student cohort in your school, talk to the students first, and to say, hey, how do you feel about expressing something, about maybe making a mural or something to represent coming together and learning and cultures, and really letting them shape it, develop a co-designed approach with your Indigenous kids, give them the opportunities to become leaders, and also other kids, allies, to join that, to learn to work together and co-create ways, monuments of change, where I see it, for the future generations coming into your school could look at it. And I have to say to everyone, think about your front entrance when you come to the school, you know, the wall behind the reception area. Wouldn't that be wonderful if you could get kids? If you didn't have Indigenous kids in your schools, why not reach out to your communities and say, hey, we would love to partner up with some schools or and do a real mural to show our love and celebration and connectedness to land and culture. Can we help? Can we work on something together? And make that as part of your school ambition to really put reconciliation plans into action. I'm a visual person, and I don't know if it comes from my ancestors, but I love to see connecting images, uh, different artifacts which represent the local area. So it's not just about putting a picture up, it's about researching skills, getting the kids to talk to elders, bringing them in, talking about what used to be here in terms of the fauna and flora, and creating something so it has meaning and an artifact so that everyone can take and learn from it. And that's a real great skill, to embed history, geography, English, maths, all the different streams. You can have all levels working together and create this beautiful artifact of care, and then inviting local elders for, you know, a welcome ceremony, asking if they would like to participate, and acknowledging that and honoring the ancestors for the region to really become authentically. So I'll stop it there because I can go on forever. I want to now
Ricki,
ask.
just the wall idea and the visual is a great idea, and it's something. Well, I think it's a massive thing, but it doesn't. It can be done at a small scale. And I work with a school in Sydney, St Pat's.
Oh yes, I know
Quite
them.
an elite school, academic focused, no Aboriginal students at the school, and we had an immersion program with them when I was in Alice Springs. So as part of that immersion program, their students developed a wall, exactly as you said. And so when our students went in there, so a lot of them some of them hadn't been on a plane before, let alone seen the surf. So when they went to Sydney and went to St Pat's and this massive school, but they could actually see themselves represented in this wall, and it was like a magnet. Our students went straight to the wall, and they were just enamored with this wall. So yeah, the visuals are so important.
That just touches my heart, Ren, because I'm all about creating that visibility. And visibility means we're being heard. Visibility means you're paying attention. We're tapping into people's biases, if they are, and saying that, hey, this is what our school community is about. And if we can get it right in schools, we can get it right in other spaces. I want to now ask you the core question of the evening that everyone's been waiting to hear, and that's on education and training. So what type of training do you believe educators need to effectively support Indigenous health and wellbeing in their classrooms? Over to you.
Well, that's a big question, Ricki.
I know, and you've got a few minutes extra.
Oh, okay. Look, I think you'll hear these terms like cultural competency and about embedding Indigenous perspectives and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander frameworks. So I think they all kind of mean the same thing, and it's for our in terms of our teachers, especially for our pre-service teachers, about thinking about how we go about the process of teaching. So it's not about developing a lesson plan where I might tick a box and go, okay, well, this part will address Indigenous perspectives. It's about how we think using that lens, those Indigenous knowledges. As I said before, it's about acknowledging that the country that you're standing on right now has, tens of thousands of years of knowledge. So how can we actually use that, incorporate that into our thinking when we are developing a lesson plan, are thinking about how we're going to teach the content, how it can help that inform, how we structure our assessment around those kind of knowledges. Now, there are some really great tools and resources that can actually assist teachers. I know AITSL, sorry for the acronyms, but the Australian Institute for Teaching and Leadership, I can never think of that. So AITSL is our professional teacher standards. They've developed this cultural competency framework that teachers, or really any or pre-service teachers, can actually access, and it's an ongoing. It's free to access. They can actually do it in their own time, but it actually helps support addressing some of those questions that you asked, Ricki, but in a self-paced way. And it will give them actually tools to actually how they can go about embedding Indigenous perspectives. And then there's another one, places like the Australian Curriculum, AATSIS, they all have some really great resources to actually help teachers embed Indigenous perspectives. But I think, doing it is lifelong. It's not something you can go and do a workshop and then have all the answers, or even do a course. We embed these programs in our undergraduate degrees and our Bachelor of Education. So we are one subject in a sea of 16, 20 subjects. So, but universities are embedding Indigenous perspectives across the board. So we're hoping that when students come out and they're ready to teach, it's almost that's second nature, that's they think about those things when they develop their lesson plans. But for me, it's those key R's, those developing those relationships, really embracing relationality, talking about reciprocity. So those kind of things, and also always being respectful to where we're teaching and to the local community, knowing what those protocols are, and also acknowledging that there is a past, a shared past, and then looking at the great work that people like Reconciliation Victoria are doing. And that's another source of great resources.
Well, absolutely. I wanted to jump in and say we have a plethora of resources.
Yes.
We've got local curriculum resources that have been developed specifically on our website. And that's why I'm reaching out. But can I also say one of my passions, Dr. Ren, and I really would hope to encourage those who are in a position of school leadership listening, is getting your pre-service students ready, encouraging them to join things like Reconciliation in Victoria, to get a taste, if you want, what you can do in your local community. One thing that I think would have helped me, years ago when I was doing my teaching, would have been more because I felt, what can I do? And I thought, can I disclose them? All these things, but connect with spaces already in your community, your local community centres, your elders. Tell them, hey, I'm going to become a teacher, and I really want to become an effective, authentic learning coordinator, as I used to, or whoever you want to call yourself. Can I learn from you? Can we have a sit down? Can we have, a chat over something to eat, and tell me how I can learn from you? Maybe you would like to come and share some ideas in the classroom. We could talk to the principal. Get that authentic engagement earlier on so you can see from the local level how you can embed learnings from that, because kids really love to connect in local spaces. So if there's a sporting space that kids love, find out about the history of that location. Find out about what you can do from that local level to get that interest. I
Yes.
always say to schools and say, hey, have you thought about local herbs and spices that, that were in that area, to get the kids to become involved in science and then really growing some flora and fauna so that people can understand and kids can learn about that. Make it real, make it something that people that's tangible. I'm all about that. And I just wanted to add more on the thing. We got a newsletter for free. So please, everyone, encourage your students, everybody to subscribe to that newsletter, and you can find it. And also reach out to Dr. Ren. He's got this wonderful book, which I'm going to be talking to him about reviewing on our other spaces. But I'm going to be pushing for that book to be like a mandatory text call for all early teacher, education. And I always say, you never stop being a teacher. I'm 56 and I still buy new texts because I want to learn from new people, new research. So it's about being your currency, keeping up. And I guess from that, Dr. Ren, what would you say, and this is before we open the floor, is the future vision topic. Looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of health and wellbeing in schools through your living lens as an Indigenous man, a scholar, and an educator of future researchers?
Well, my vision, and I hope I see it while I'm still here, and is that we don't have programs where we're embedding Indigenous perspectives, where we're not talking about Indigenous health and well-being, that it's just, this is business as usual for all of us. So that's kind of my vision. And so rather than we have these standalone programs, we're always pushing an agenda, always kind of fighting political parties on either side of the spectrum, where it's just the way we think. And we actually can draw on the strength of country to help inform that way of thinking. So, because we have a lot of wisdom from our ancestors there that we all, as in all Australians, can actually benefit from. So that is my vision, is that we don't have these embedding Indigenous perspectives, that this is just the work that we do, the programs that we run, our curriculum includes everyone.
Oh, it's absolutely. It's inspired me to feel positive, and I love the way you framed it. That one day we can all just be who we want to be, whatever positionality we hold, and celebrate our uniqueness. But always remember that this land, where it came from, our people, that we're important to it. And on that note, I want to open up the floor because I know people love a Q&A time. So please raise your hands while you've got this opportunity. Remember, no question is too silly. No, you can phrase it. Even if you want to make a comment, send some love across. We want to hear from you. So it's over to whoever wants to speak.
Like Q&A on the ABC.
It is a bit like that, isn't it? While we're waiting, because sometimes people can be a bit shy. Please don't be shy, but it could just be me with we've got someone already with their hand up, and it's I can't see because I'm too excited. I just got all excited about the
Is it
hand
Rani?
raised. Rani? Yes, Rani. Go over to you, Rani.
Hi, Ren. That
Hi,
was
Rani.
amazing. With a lot of the things that you've said, the practical stuff, we have had a lot of that stuff suggested to us time and time again, and I will be posting this to staff. I'm a bit disappointed that no one else from my school joined, but anyway, I do know there is like a union meeting happening at the same time, and it's sort of a crossover with those people. We come up against there not being any funds. And the funny thing is, my other role at the school is maintenance admin. So I actually see how much funds that we are spending mending holes constantly kicked in bathroom walls because we don't address the behaviour around that, because those kids have vocal parents. And it's just really disheartening to see that that's where schools go to. Like, I know that's not the reason. They like grey poles. They don't want them coloured. They want them grey. They don't want more stuff. They actually just want what they've put there, and they don't want sort of the feedback. And I'm sure a lot of people in the same role as me, our role description says provide advice. And there's only so much times you can provide advice and provide knowledge and provide, like right now, I'm providing the opportunity for staff to do Indigenous learning, but nobody came. So, you know, and that's, you know, I mean,
Yes.
there's a few things at play with that. So I was just wondering if you've got any advice to get around the when you know that it's bullshit.
Yeah, it looks some schools, it's going to be, that systematic institutional barriers that have been there, that communities have probably been dealing with for years. And often, it'll take a generation for a really great leader to come in who teachers and staff, but as important, community can actually communicate with and build a relationship with. And that's why I'm saying while the work that Reconciliation Victoria does is based on, individual people coming together and working to a cause, in this case, it's at an institutional level. It's at the departments level that change has to be systematic, because otherwise we won't get change. We'll just keep doing the same thing. We'll keep teaching to the same curriculum, and we'll, work, our departments are working towards, and schools are working toward budgets. They get directions from head office, targets that they have to meet. So those things are meaningless to community. Community just want to feel like they're welcomed and that they can contribute and that they're being listened to and that they are trusted. So, again, and I don't have an easy answer, Rani, but it is about those relationships are key, and it can be a key person both in the school or school leadership and in the community, and having that really strong relationship and making that the foundation of change. But yeah, those situations are common and they're really complex. So there's no quick, and that's what governments want, is quick answers.
Mm-hmm.
And we just throw money at it and we'll fix it. And that's not going to fix this. It's generational. So it's going to be time, and it's going to be, I don't think you can put like a cost on it. Sorry if that doesn't answer your right.
Can I just say, Rani, I want to say from me, you're doing a fabulous job, and my heart goes out to you, because we need people like you in the schools and champion it. And even if those people didn't turn up, I'm sure some should have, and they will. It will make them, remind them that, hey, you missed out on a great opportunity to get some learnings. And it's all about that. You become a better informed teacher, but I'm so blessed that there are people like you, Rani, who are making change. And, from me to you, I value what you do, my sweetheart. And we'll
keep doing what you're doing, Rani.
Yeah, keep what you're doing, and anything I can do to help, just reach out. I've got a wonderful question in the chat that so many people have put love hearts to, and it's from Pandamini. And I don't know, Pandamini, if you want to speak to it or if you wanted me just to read it out. So I'll just give
I just have my 4-year-old son with me, so it's a little bit.
No worries, my darling. Would you like me to read it out for you?
Yeah, that would be great, Ricki. Thank you.
No worries, sweetheart. Okay, so Pandamini says, I work at a kindergarten, and we think we have the ability to embed a lot more Indigenous programs into our curriculum, but a lot of it is construed as tokenistic, and this makes us almost too scared to try it. How can we manage this? Over to you, Dr. Ren.
Yeah, and I think that's a common concern for a lot of teachers, about not wanting to be seen as tokenistic, that they want the process and the learning to be authentic. And the other thing about is the fear of getting it wrong or saying the wrong thing. So then nothing happens. So yeah, that again, it's and I say this to our pre-service teachers, it's sometimes you've got to be vulnerable, but there are resources to help you to the programs that you're running or the things that you're embedding to not make them seem tokenistic, to make them authentic, to actually involve community in making decisions in what that program, in what that lesson plan, in what that embedding Indigenous perspectives look like. And if it is just a tick the box, then yes, it is going to be tokenistic. But if it's done authentically, respectfully, and having that notion of reciprocity, I think I think you can actually overcome those fears. Those fears are real, because a lot of times, from what Rani was saying before, that in a lot of schools there isn't that support. Yet the Australian curriculum, AITSL, different departments are wanting us to embed Indigenous perspectives across the curriculum. So it is a requirement for teachers, for our professional practice, but it's doing it authentically. So and it's about asking as well. Don't be afraid to ask questions and to get support where you may need it. There are people out there, people like Ricki, who you can contact and to have that authenticity, and to just kind of reassure that the work you're doing is authentic. So don't be afraid to ask. It's not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength.
Absolutely. I think the fact you raise it, I'm so happy, because this is a question we get asked a lot, especially for pre-service teachers who feel, oh, I'm not Indigenous. How do I present something and be, authentically for change? And it's about, recognizing your positionality, recognizes your privilege, and then reaching out, talking to Indigenous, making the connections. I always say, if you don't know an Indigenous person, well, go out there and meet one. Talk. Go first to Reconciliation Victoria. Look on the website. Have a chat, to Claire, to say, Claire, I'd love to learn some more. Is there a short-term project that I could perhaps participate on in some way, make some contribution? And because I'm all about, teaching, we're all about having to develop our skills. And if that is one thing that you feel you identify it, that, I would like to champion this. Yeah, if you're passionate, we would love to see more champions, allies. Say, hey, I'd love to champion this in the kindergarten curriculum. How can I go? How can you support me through this? And then you can contact Reconciliation Victoria. You can contact people like me in the community to say, Ricki, can you put me in touch with some, local Indigenous sports young people who could come into the classroom and teach kids and talk about their journey of being a sports person? Or they could be talking about their journey doing art or project work or singing or something to get the kids involved. That's the conversation, bringing real people into the classroom. Or if I know with police checks and all, it's getting harder and harder. Even with Zooming, Zooming can be a way to get pre-recorded to save someone speak and then bring some artifacts to share. I'm all about that. I know we're almost out of time. We're out of time, but we've got Molly, and Molly's got a quick, I was about to say call like I'm on the radio. Molly, are you there?
Oh, it doesn't feel a bit like the radio. I was typing it out and I didn't really know how to word the question, so I'll try and go quickly for you. But I work in Outer Ed in Victoria. We're very lucky to be able to see a whole range of different parts of the country. We would have opportunities to connect with different cultures where we go. So I'm just wondering if you've seen any success in Outer Ed, or if there's any examples that you've seen in outdoor ed that, you know, we go from prep to year 9, so there's a huge range. But is there anything that you would suggest that we could be doing on top of obviously everything you've said, you know, getting involved with the local communities and looking into local resources? Is there anything particular to outdoor ed that you could suggest?
Yeah, thanks, Molly. I haven't heard of that program. So can you just a little bit about what you do?
Oh yeah. So outdoor education in schools, depending on the school, our department take each year group, so from prep through to year 9, on different either journeys or like hard top, like place-based adventures. So they'll come out. So for example, we have a camp that we do out towards Mildura for our year 8. So we have a bit of a hike and a journey and everything. The little kids, for example, the year 2s today went out to Badger Weir and explored like the local sort of Park Vic area. So we're taking the students outside and taking them either on journey-based education or just whatever is in the local area.
Yeah, okay, I've got it. And I think a lot of what you do is successful because it's, and I had a colleague who was doing her PhD, non-Indigenous person, but, you know, place-based education and outdoor education. And a lot of her research was being informed from Indigenous knowledges and around those connecting to country and but also the local community in that space that you're working in and how that can inform the practices, as Ricki was saying before, some of the things that you can engage with. But I just think getting young people out of the classroom, outdoors, connecting to country, you know, physically, I think it's, yeah, I really hats off to the program. And so seeing where that the research is providing evidence that that is successful for all students, not just Indigenous students, especially for wellbeing. So I think keep doing what you're doing, Molly. And yeah, I think a lot of schools just, you know, could be learning from that program. But in terms of for you, I think there's, yeah, it's just about, you know, looking at what resources are there in terms of, you know, making those connections with local community, but also, you know, looking at places like AATSIS, the Australian curriculum, AITSL, where you can actually support your professional development in that space.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
And don't forget, Molly, you know, councils, you know, community capacity building funds. You know, in every council space, there's an Indigenous community or a practice that's, you know, they're called advisory. Reach out there, Molly, because there could be something that's happening locally to the school even that you could do a project that you could co-partner with. It could be a park redevelopment. It could be something where the kids can get involved and be part of. And I'm all about artifact creation and building ways of footprinting. Ways of connecting could be wonderful. So happy to chat more and reach out. Look, we're out of time, everyone. I could talk. I just want Ren here forever and keep this going. I know we can't because everyone's got to go, but I just wanted to reach out to Ren and give you a big kiss and hug, Ren, to thank you so much for your words of wisdom and thank you for looking after our community. And you know, we can't wait. We're going to have you back here again when you have your book out and that to talk more because I really feel that, you know, as whether you're 22 beginning your teaching or whether you're 56 like me and still loving teaching, you know, we can learn and we can share from your ideas. And I know that you'll be putting lots of ideas on how we can embed different ways of knowing and meshing up to really bring the best for the student and have a more richer, authentic worldview of Indigenous perspectives in our community. For those people, we really love feedback. If you can please reach out to Claire, tell us if I was too much, let me know, you know, I can go. But, you know, if you want to see more, if you've got topics of interest you want us to cover, please put it in. You know, if you want to know more about outdoor education and placemaking, how to form those partnerships in community, reach out. If it's to do with, you know, politics and getting kids involved in local governance and committees setting up, let us know. We are here to do that. And I'm very privileged and proud to be affiliated in this space, and this is my passion. But again, I want to thank Professor Dr.
not
Ren
yet.
Perkins for spending 1 hour with us. This is recorded. Please reach out to Dr. Ren Perkins at University of Griffith University. Sorry. If you look at his work, his research, links to read his work, and if you've got collaboration ideas, please reach out. And are you supervising students yet, Dr. Ren, or next year maybe?
No, we have one who's got an application in.
For those who are
master's.
interested, please consider it. If you have Indigenous friends who want to become teachers, please support them and get them to come into your schools. Even have a reach out to Dr. Ren if there's ways that he can support or give you ideas how you can make that journey into the classroom more supported and ongoing, because we really want to get more people who are mobbed to become teachers and leadership in schools, because I think that's the way future. Like my bias being trans, if you have more teachers like me, it just gets rid of the hate. And I'm all about building love and community capacity building. Our culture, our community is all about love. It's all about learning together. Thank you everyone for coming today. Please reach out to Claire for any feedback or any information you need. The newsletter will have more information coming your way for our next webinar, which will be coming shortly. Very excited for that. Thank you everyone for listening, for your time. We know you've got to all head off to your busy lives. Thank you for spending an hour with us today. What can I say? Final words, Claire?
Just thank you, Ricki. And just a note on echoing Ren's comments about the power of volunteering to connect. Ricki is a volunteer at RecVic, and we really value your work, Ricki. And Ren, it's been so good to have you here too. Ren's also giving his time freely today. So thank you everybody for attending. I will be sending out a feedback survey. And yeah, if you're not already subscribed or a member of Reconciliation Victoria, go to the website and you can join up from there. So thank you so much.
For those that want to start, I just want to I'm a bit of a footprint collector, so I want to take a photo of anyone who wants to be on this, because one, I ideally love meeting people, and for me, being an older person, it's my footprint to remember. So Ren, can you stay on for 1 minute? And anyone who would love to be on the screen with Ren, to have this moment to capture it. Maybe it's something you want to share with your kids at school, maybe, or your workplace, Kate, or something, to say how we can have more conversations in the community and really get this momentum going. So normally I get someone else to take a photo for me because I'm not IT savvy at my age, but I will try and just do that. So for those that want to smile, and we'll just take a photo. Print screen. I think I've done it, and I'll just use my camera. I'm old-fashioned. Bear with me, because I even have the days of using camera. And I'll just move it along one more, because I'm moving up with people who I can't get their faces on. Beautiful, and I'll send that to anyone who wants it. Look, I love you all, and being autistic, I'm sorry, I'll probably talk too much, but I can't help enough. Thank you so much for making this day special. Dr. Ren, I'm going to follow you. Please get in touch, because we'll get in touch, because I want to do your book and I've got some ideas how we can get that really everywhere. Everyone else, please, thank you so much for coming to our first session for 2025. Please reach out to Claire for any information or support and any ways that we can help. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care, everyone. Look after your family, kids, and pets, please. I hope that was all right, Claire.
Well done. Yeah, thank you. It was fantastic.
And I hope that's everything that, I think it would really
Yeah.
well. But the recording I will send to you, because I've recorded it, and I'll send that recording for you, darling. I think we got a good response of people. And I
Yeah,
think the style worked well. Ren was
Yeah.
lovely. I
yeah.
think Ren's a nice soul, and I can't
Oh,
wait
he's
for the next one,
fabulous.
darling.
Yeah,
I've got
fabulous.
heaps of people who are
Yeah,
keen,
thank you.
darling.
Yeah,
So I'll
thank you
get the
so
next
much,
one
Ricki.
started
Yeah,
because I want to get a few done,
yeah,
and I'll send that. But I think now that word will travel, that we're an interactive space, that people can ask questions
yeah.
to what they want. I think we can get some really good things. So I've really enjoyed
Absolutely.
it. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me, Claire.
Thank you, Ricki. It was great. Yeah.
Okay, my
Have a
darling. Well,
nice evening.
you too, and
Yeah.
I will stop the recording.
Okay.
And yeah, okay.